introductions about our company just to understand where we come from. We've been founded end of 2018 out of Taiwan. In that meantime, we built a full device, hardware and software bundle that we put into the room as a voice AI system. And we are now live in more than 50 hotels, 5,000 rooms. That represents a flow of data coming in quite impressive. We worked with some leading brands, mostly in APAC. This is our first time at HITEC, so I'm very glad to be here with all of you today. That's a bit about us. What I want to talk with you today is explain a little bit on what we think conversational AI is, what it matters for hospitality businesses. Then we're gonna dive into how to implement it in a hotel environment, how you can act on it, and how to leverage its potential so that you can make the best out of this new technology in a hotel environment. Alright, so in order to discuss and talk about conversational AI, we have to first understand what is the underlying technology behind this. When we hear conversational AI, we hear the terms artificial intelligence, machine learning, NLP, NLU, all those terms that not all of you may be familiar with. I'm just going to very quickly talk about the basics of AI here. When we hear AI, what we're actually talking about is how the machines or the computer softwares are able to imitate human behavior. And when you dive into that huge field that is AI, you can actually start seeing what we call machine learning or even deep learning. So machine learning is when you add to artificial intelligence a layer of statistics that helps the software and the models improve with experience. And when you talk about deep learning, that's when you implement some what we call neural networks that helps the software make assumptions, deductions, and basically understand the context that the software evolves into. And that's within this field of AI that you can find what we call NLP, natural language processing, or NLU, which is the understanding of the natural language. So it's basically the field of AI that is focusing on understanding spoken language, human language that we have every day in a business environment, or any written language that we use as well. And that's really important to understand because it matters for any type of business, especially for hospitality businesses. When you think about the data that is accessible to you, we often differentiate the unstructured data from the structured data. Unstructured data is basically everywhere, but very difficult to act on. It's everything that is hidden in the social media, in the voice calls that you make, in your emails, in your chat messages, all of those things that are surrounding your businesses but not very easy to understand. On the other side, you have the structured data. That's what we are all familiar with. It's the CRM, the forms, Excel sheets, financial data, online activities for your guests as well that you can comprehend, you can input into databases and act on. So even though that structured data is actually representing only a few of what is actually available, this is still today how we drive most of our businesses, especially in the hotel business and hotel environment. Which, when you think about it, doesn't really make sense because being a people business, you really want to focus on what your people, your staff, your guests are telling you, how they express themselves. But today, because structured data is so easy to get, easy to mine, understand, and process, we take all of decisions, we drive all of our business based on those data. But actually this is limited data, it's far from customers. It doesn't really reflect the reality of the business insights that you're into. And the use cases are actually limited. So once we understand that, the question becomes how do you convert this 90-80% of unused data into something you can actually act on, something you can structure and leverage. And that's where conversational AI comes in. This is a basic model of how we define a conversational AI process. So you have a user that is speaking to a machine, a device, that inputs a voice. It transfers it and transcribes it as a text. Once you have the text, then that's where the NLU part, the machine learning aspect comes in. It kicks in at that stage, and basically it helps the software understand the structure, summarize the different key points and meanings, emotions, define the next action of what the software is going to do. The graphic DB and AI database part is the third part of the conversational AI. That's where the software is able to extract the whole structure and tells you what matters in that speech, in that conversation, input that in a database, and basically structure everything into something you can search, something you can analyze at scale. The last part is how conversation AI will be able to answer and give a response, give an action back to the user as a text-to-speech that is provided back to the user. So basically, when you see a voice AI assistant, when you see all those devices, that's how it happens inside, and that's how some conversation AI are able to extract the data and make it from unstructured to structured data. Okay, now that we have seen that and we better understand what conversational AI actually means, we're going to see how to implement it in a hotel environment and how to fully leverage its potential. So, when you think about implementing conversational AI in a hotel, you have to first understand where are the conversations happening. That's where your unstructured data is. So there are basically three ways you can start implementing it. The first one would be try to capture all the face-to-face interactions that your hotel has. That happens in the front desk, in the common areas. But this is very difficult to do. You don't have many solutions that are available out there to capture those physical, everyday conversations. The second aspect you can look into is capturing and analyzing digital conversations that are happening within your business. And those are all the emails, chats, voice calls that are made to the front desk, all the social media reviews that you can see. And in that field, you have some solutions on the market that are available, basically to help you better listen to social media reviews at scale, have software that analyze emails, analyze the calls. Those are a good solution, but they mostly focus on the conversation that happened pre-stay or post-stay, but not really something when your guests are actually in the hotel. And that's why the third part we think at ILO is the most valuable to build conversational AI from scratch is create new interaction, create new conversations within the room through AI assistants, through voice or chatbots that can happen within the room. That's what we decided to focus on at ILO, and we think that that's how we can fully embrace conversational AI potential. Now, you might want to think that why would I want to create new channel of communication when I can actually just analyze the conversation that are already happening? When you think about it a bit deeper, creating a new channel of communication has actually a few advantages. The first one is that it covers an untapped area of the guest journey. This is when the guests are in the room. And you, as a hotel business, you have very few ways to actually know about this time and very few non-invasive solutions to understand what your guests are doing behind closed doors. In our experience, we know that with this kind of devices in the room, a hotel gets an average 20 conversations per day. So that's 20 pieces of information that you didn't have before that are now available to your business. So that's one. The second one is that it also offloads your staff because all the conversations that are happening in the room are less conversation for your front desk, mostly the repetitive tasks that those are doing. And to this day, with all the labor difficulties that we're experiencing around the world, we know that this is valuable. We have estimated with our high-end data that average hotel around 200 rooms would save about 13 hours per day of staff time, and that's every day. The third part is that, of course, it elevates guest experience. It's a good way to have a new, innovative way to let your customers interact within the room, communicate with other services. If you have an IoT controlled room already, communicate with the TV and all that. But what really matters when you think about voice AI assistant is that those have to be data-based, meaning that they have to provide you those unstructured data that we were talking about. They have to be able to analyze those and provide it to you back as a report, as conversation analytics. And that's where only when you can really transform those devices, those voice AI assistant, into something that represents the reality of your business and provide it back to you as valuable insights that you can act on. Of course, those devices in the room, they also cover a huge set of features. Most of them, and ours included, are an AI chatbot that you can talk into. They serve as a communication channel. So you can do room request services, you can broadcast messages. Most of the time it covers VoIP phone as well, the alarm clock and all this. And we're going to talk about this a bit later, but it's also a good way to upsell your different services through a display that you can touch, recommending some F&B facilities and all. And something that is more easy for the guest to understand, it serves as an entertainment device because its ability to play music, serves as a Bluetooth speaker, also control the room, the TV as I mentioned. Alright, so that's basically how your bedside can look after you have implemented such devices. It covers all the aspects that were there before, and now it's mostly in better implementation. So you can, most of our hotels use that as well in order to save on their capex, which is pretty obvious when you think about the numbers of devices that you can cover. Okay, so now let's say you have implemented those conversational AI in your hotel. What kind of data can you actually get from it? What is the information that you will gather? So through the conversation that a guest will have with this type of device, you really start to understand a lot more about your guests. I'm going to go through all of those very quickly. So the first one is that you can understand what kind of hotel services they look into. You can ask questions about your swimming pool, your spa, your gym, every kind of facilities that you have. Very good information for your operation team in order to know what the guests prefer and plan ahead on that. The second part is you can start understanding much more about the guest travel preferences. You can understand the reason they travel, what they are looking for, what kind of hotels, what kind of restaurants they want to go to, what kind of tourist spots they actually wish to go. Very good information for partnership teams. The customer satisfaction part is a huge one as well. It's basically that through this device, the customers can express more complaints, mention some issues that they experienced during their stay. And for your customer success team, that's a huge information to get on a daily basis. And on a more simple aspect, when you look at all the data you can get, you very quickly understand when your guests are interacting with it, when they are in the room. So that gives you an idea of the activity time that they have during the day, and if they are sleeping outside of the room, inside the room, and all this. So you can push some messages specifically to them. Also better plan your housekeeping timing or helps for the butlers as well. The room amenities is another one where you can better plan ahead and realize what kind of amenities are necessary for your room to be because of everything that has been asked around. And the last part is the in-room experience. That's when you start understanding how your guests are interacting within the room, if they're using the TV, the IoT, the music, or not. Okay, so last part of this presentation. I want to share a bit with you some of what we have seen how the hotels that we work with use this data, use conversational AI, the data that they gather to act on, and what kind of, how it can help them on a daily basis to drive their business better. The first part is upselling opportunities. I mentioned it a bit earlier. We integrate with some messaging apps, and some of our hotels use that in order to make the whole process with the guest very seamless. So I'll give you an example. When a guest asks for surrounding areas, let's say a restaurant around, then the results will be obviously pushed back as a voice assistant, but also pushed on the personal device. You have a QR code that scans in and it can link to, let's say, your WhatsApp or other type of messaging app. So you get the results first. But on the back end of that, it also provides the next step of loyalty program. Because now you can know who your guest is and what they are asking, because the hotel gets that data back and it links back to their CRM. So it's a seamless experience from the hotel, from the guest perspective, because of that SIM transition with their personal device. At the same time, it gives the hotel a clear idea of what the guests are looking for. Another example is the ability to broadcast messages. Let's say your guest is active around 8 p.m. on a Friday night. It might be good to push them a happy hour message at that time, because you know your bar has at this specific time. And we have seen a lot of our hotels using it this way. And the third part is exclusive offer. If you have a specific coupon for a tour package in your area, here in Orlando, I'm guessing many hotels have some, and you know that your guests are asking for the theme park around here, then you can push them a dedicated coupon for the tour that you're partnering with, so that they can just scan the QR code and go ahead with it. So basically those upselling opportunities, when you think about them this way, it's proactively upselling actions based on the conversations. And that's where it really matters. Everything here is originating from the conversation. From there, you can start upselling, you can start making your business go forward. Another aspect that we have seen is that many hotels uncover new information, new type of information about their guests that they had no idea were there before. We have one hotel, it's from the south of Taiwan. They realized that a lot of questions were asked about very specific aspects of their swimming pool, the pH level. They would never have guessed that the pH level of the pool would have been something the guest cared about. So now they've changed that, and the AI assistant is able to answer this question. Same with the goggles or the swimming pools. Another one, and that's quite a funny one. Another hotel realized that they got maybe 50 questions on how to operate the toilets in their room. They were like, how? They didn't even know that the toilets were complicated in the first place. And it got solved all of a sudden after they just put a small piece of paper above the toilet explaining where the flush was or something. So it's really something they couldn't have guessed, and they were open for already 3 years before they changed that. More simple example is also the different amenities. You know how the POs are always trying to get stolen or anything. The hotel bathroom is another topic. So we got a lot of questions on that, and it's much easier for the hotel to share how much it costs, what's the policy around those amenities through the voice assistant. The last part, and here I want to talk about one example that we have in Intercontinental Kaohsiung in the south of Taiwan, is through the partnerships. I mentioned it a bit earlier, but once you start seeing a lot of questions coming up about the area, about the places that your hotel wants to go to, that your guests want to go to, you can decide which third party, which local partner you want to partner with. This hotel has noticed that a lot of people were coming there in order to go to one specific restaurant. In that case, there was a beef noodle soup that I can tell you was very good. And they went there, so they realized that, okay, we have to partner with this restaurant. We have to go there and make sure that we can provide our guests, I don't know, specific coupons or something. But they moved this way, and they told me that it was a great way for them to bring this international luxury standard and blend it into a local environment, which is what every luxury hotel is trying to do. And so that helps them do that. Okay, in a few minutes we have left, I want to cover a bit about the ROI. I covered most of that already, but when you want to see numbers, that's the numbers that we put forward. So we know that voice assistant, when you have this data, it can help you in the efficiency a lot. We've talked about labor, efficiency cost, we've talked about the time saving for your front desk. Just the CapEx and OpEx savings is a huge one as well. So the ROI, when you start looking at it, is very easy to calculate. Some of the device, yours included, has ads going in the background, so you can see how your guests interact with the ads, push more specific ads for each guest. And so we really see how our hotel can benefit all of those technology when they implement it. And before I finish, I want to put a side note on the privacy. That's a question we get often when it comes to voice assistant. So when you're looking at implementing conversational AI into your hotel, be sure to select someone to work in a way that protect the privacy and the security of the data of your guests, because this is still partly a public area. So you have to go to aim at like the GDPR standards that some voice assistant put in place. And so make sure that the guest has provided some form of consent before they get their data processed, that the data is anonymized so that we cannot trace back to an individual person. And for that, you can often check how the data is communicated between the cloud and the on-premise on the device. The less interaction there is, the less chance, the more safe it is for the guest. So overall, once as a hotel you start owning all that data, and you can make sure that you have access to everything and you can craft it in the way you want, then that's how you can also make sure everything is processed in the privacy and security standards that you wish to implement to your guests. I think that's all I had for you today, quite on time. We are exhibiting at the other side of this show, so feel free to drop by and chat to us. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to stay here for 5 minutes, or just take questions in the audience as well. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure.